All right, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the ongoing battle of the S15 drift build. For you JDM fanboys that watch my videos, this is technically an S15, also known as a Sonoma. Same thing as an S10 essentially. But today, for those of you that kind of want to watch and learn how to do a very specific swap for this chassis, we're going to be putting in our Ford 8.8 410 limited slip differential in the back of the S10. As you can see, we kind of already are a little bit ahead on this entire build, as we do already have the box off the truck and the factory diff is already removed. And we're gonna be doing a leaf spring perch relocate and getting it in the truck hopefully by the end of the evening today. And we're gonna be doing a little bit of cleaning up of the frame as well while we have the whole box off, but that's not really anything that you guys that want to learn how to do this need to know how to do, so it's not really a big deal. If you want to follow along, the first thing you're going to need to do with this guy is you're going to need to go ahead and get the box off of the truck. Now this is a fairly easy thing to do, and you're going to need a lot of bolt lubricant or WD-40 or something, whatever you prefer to use, depending on how old your S10 or S15 is. And we're going to go ahead and start by removing the chassis mount bolts that are on the truck. There should be one here. Some trucks have another one here. There's another one in the back right here, and then one more right here, and then it mirrors on the other side, and you just get those from underneath the bed of the truck. Super easy to get out. Those should be 17 millimeter for you GMC guys, because I believe the GMCs are all metric, and then the S10s might be Imperial. I'm not entirely sure what year they swapped over for the S10 as well, but then that should allow you to get the bed off. And then there is a wiring harness down in the frame of the truck right here, this guy. That just needs to be disconnected for the taillights. And then there's also a ground, which is just in here. That needs to be unbolted as well, as that will tether all of the license plate lights, the taillight ground, and everything to the truck. And once that's off, it can all be removed. This is just for a third brake light for a canopy that this truck used to have that I no longer do. So you should just be able to do that. And then this should all come off. And then unbolting the diff is very simple. It's obviously just brake lines, the U-bolts, and then the drive shaft if you still have one installed. I didn't, so that was pretty easy for me. And then the diff should just be able to come out with the help of a buddy, because it is heavy and it is awkward, so don't hurt yourself trying to take it out. But yeah, so this is where we're at this point. The most important part of this entire job is obviously going to be measuring the factory distances between the stock leaf spring perches and measuring them for the distance in between the leaf spring perches, because we're going to have to replicate that obviously on the 8.8 rear end. And then the difference with that diff is, if you look at the GM one, very uniform, the distance between the beginning of the pumpkin and the perch. I just call the diff the pumpkin, a lot of people do. So the inside of the leaf perch to the pumpkin on both sides is uniform. It's about the same distance. The diff layout is obviously offset on this diff, but if you come over and you look at the 8.8, these distances in between the pumpkin and the perches are different. They are wider on the driver's side. I've already taken the one perch off this side just to practice getting it off, so I can show you guys how to efficiently get it off on this side. But they are different, so we just have to make sure that when we're measuring, we are measuring accurately to re-weld the perches back onto the 8.8. And the cool thing about the diff on our Ford axle here is that the perches actually fit perfectly onto the stock leaf springs. There's a little bit of forward and back play, which we will obviously address later on with the U-bolts and a couple other goodies as well. I'll put you guys down. We'll cut these perches off and I'll run through the measurements and everything for getting it all on there. There are tons of forum posts for doing this, so I'm actually going to be following one of those forum posts, but I will show you guys just kind of how to do it live. So 8.8 410 limited slip going into the S15. So let's make it happen. thing to note, the hole in there, make sure you mark it on the drive shaft with something metal so that scratches the hole so you know what center is, or I guess like level, if that makes sense. So when you put it on, it's not like 15, 20 degrees out of the correct angle, so that's a good way to keep track of it. But yeah, there you go. So now both the mounts are off. So now we'll get to the measuring part. So we're doing some measuring here, getting everything all lined up. And it's looking like it's about 91 centimeters, just over 91 centimeters, almost 3 feet, 36 inches, from the inside of this spring perch to the other side. All measured up, pulled it apart, checked it twice. So we're good there. We're gonna double check the forum posts, and don't worry about the level being off because my garage is actually on a slant. We're gonna double check with the forum posts, make sure that everything kind of adds up. And then what we're gonna do is we're actually not gonna weld it right off the car. What we're gonna do is we're gonna get the spring perches on the leaf springs in the truck, slide the diff in, get it set to the right angle and everything for the drive shaft and whatnot. So the pinion angle, I think that's what it's called, but basically just like the drive shaft angle with the joints and everything. Make sure that's all good to go, and then we'll make sure this all lines up, do the measurements while it's resting on there so that we can actually slide the axle back and forth, and then make sure that our measurements from the back side of the brake caliper bracket are equal on both sides, and that's how we're going to determine that the leaf spring is centered for basically wheel track, so that it's not too much on one side, not too much on the other side, so that it's centered. Because like I said before, the distances between the pumpkin casing and the back side of the axle on both sides is not equal, so we just have to make sure that the leaf spring perches are equal on both sides, from the back side of the axle to the leaf perches. So but yeah, like I said, I'll double check the forms, and then I'll upload all of the measuring points and stuff that I'm using here, obviously on the video, and then the forum posts will be in the description. So yeah. Push. All right, so I've gone ahead, done a bunch of measuring. Everything should be all good to go. We've got that high quality measuring equipment out. The only thing that I'm gonna change slightly is the pitch of the diff in just a second here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and change that. But it all is lined up. We've got all our measurements and everything, and it should be perfectly center with how much each side of the axle sticks out. So we should be good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it all tacked up into place here in just a second, and then should be good to take it to the drive shaft shop here in a couple days. I just need to get some wheels or some spacers for it, just so that the car can roll. Like I said, it's not gonna be driving right away, but let's do some welding and get everything lined up, and so we can be done with the diff setup. So since we're just doing some tack welding, I don't have a welding mask at the moment, so I've got the OSHA approved welding goggles ready to rock and roll here. Pit Viper, sponsor me please, that would be cool. Wait, I have a welding fucking card. Now, hypothetically, yeah, it's all connected now. Hey, my eyeballs went over. Yeah, you smoking this fucking weird. Jesus Christ. Alright, so after extensive amounts of welding to get the spring perches, the leaf spring perches, all lined up, it's in the car. So I've gone ahead and I've gotten some very spicy wheels to just roll the Sonoma or S15 or S10 or whatever the hell you want to call this thing around. I've also gone out and I've bought brand new brakes for the rear as well. So we have are in here. They're just AC Delco, nothing super crazy, because we are going to be doing a dual caliper setup in the future for a hydro. So we just kind of need it to work at this point. I also spent a shitload of time getting the factory brake line for the rear like dividing block, or the split block, to all work. So this is a factory Ford part, the factory brake line for the 8.8 that hooks up to the driver's side, that splits and goes back to the center line as well. And then you can actually adapt it directly to the S10 brake system, which is sweet, because I do believe I have ABS. I can't really remember, but yeah, you can actually adapt it to run to the factory system, and you just use one of these adapters here, and I believe this is a 3/8 to 7/16 adapter, and that just screws right into the factory brake line, and then that screws right into the Ford one. So you then have braking with no crazy modifications or anything, so that's super sweet. So I'm just gonna go ahead and throw the brakes on in the rear really quickly, and then we will have our entire 8.8 install basically done, except for U-bolts, which I will be getting tomorrow morning. But I don't think I'll have them on in time for this video, but it's just U-bolts, so nothing really crazy to get it all set up and show you guys. But I will do another video with it on the ground with the wheels and everything set up, because I do have some cool wheels that I'm running for the time being, just to get this thing over to the drive shaft shop to get that made. So that'll be the next step. And then I'm also just waiting for a 5.3 ECU fuse box, or a wiring harness fuse box, because I actually realized I don't have one. And then the wiring will go in. The fuel pump, like you saw in the last video, is all in as well. So we'll be running that, doing the wiring, and then we should be good to rock and roll, or at least fire this thing up and then get everything sorted. I do have to source a radiator still. That shouldn't be too hard, because apparently the C5 Corvette one just fits right in there with no modifications, so that should be pretty easy. Without me rambling on too much more, I will get the brakes on, and then we'll see how it all looks with it all together. Alright guys, so I've actually run into a little bit of a issue here with the brake line, so that will about do it for today's S15 update. For those of you that are kicking around waiting for a golf video, I've got a very special golf video coming out in the next couple of days here, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, the next video that you guys will see, this thing will be getting loaded up onto a truck and is going to be going to get its drive shaft made. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you've been checking out the S15 content, thanks for supporting this build in particular. But peace out. I will see you in the next video.